Agenda item number 3.
Hold on, Erica. Is somebody gonna read the email from Audrey or?
Audrey's actually on, and she is an agenda item. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Delene. But Audrey is going to go ahead and talk about the plantings herself.
Okay, got it.
Thank you. So number 3 is the Neighborhood Tree Liaison Program. So as many of you know, the Tree Advisory Committee has always had a tree liaison program. It has ebbs and flows of when it's been very vigorous and a little sparse, and then very vigorous and a little sparse. And so we are very vigorous right now, and we are in the process of updating some of the information. For example, a tree liaison is a person who lives in Norwalk, and based on the premise that someone knows their individual neighborhood better than anyone else, they would know where a proper location for trees might be. They might be at the forefront of knowing a tree that is precarious and might need to be looked at or addressed in some way. Maybe they would know before the majority of us if something needed to be pruned and that kind of thing. So they really are boots on the ground. Norwalk is a lot bigger than I think we realize, and it's impossible for a small group of 5 people to be able to see every crevice of the city that could use some greening. And so the liaisons become very important as kind of these stewards of the program within their respective neighborhoods, and of course throughout all of Norwalk. I mean, there are plenty of times when I'm driving through town and I might see a location that's not necessarily near my house, but as long as it's within Norwalk, we can address it. And we have 20 liaisons at present, and they are going to undergo a training session. We're looking right now at August 22nd. We'll, kind of firm that up and memorialize that date. It'll be a couple of hours where they will learn some preliminary things. Are there overhead wires? Does it look like there's utility in the area? Is there enough space in terms of width to accommodate the root of a growing tree? And just some really initial things. And then one of us in the committee will go out to the area and make a final decision on whether or not it's a good location for that would, kind of support the success of the tree. The other thing the liaisons will do is they could also, since they know their neighbors better than we do, they'd be very instrumental in approaching a neighbor and having a conversation about, hey, would you be amenable to putting a tree on your front lawn? And I happen to have this handy dandy book that has all of the trees you can select and commit to the life of that tree. And like I said, they're going to be a little more amenable to a neighbor that they know knocking on their door than maybe me just kind of driving through town and randomly knocking on doors. So we can really cover a lot more of the city with their help, particularly on private land.
So Erica, just to sort of underline that point, that the tree
Yeah.
liaisons being part of neighborhoods and neighborhood groups that know people are usually easier to make, sort of connections.
Exactly. Yeah, and so they become, a really important part of the work that we do. And we have this new group that we're going to be training on the 22nd. We're working right now on updating some of the training material and some of the materials we hand out to the liaisons. While how to plant a tree is not really going to change. We can certainly continually update our tree list based on availability and sourcing and and keep an eye out for some of the, newer research like planting in snow shelves and that kind of thing. And so one of the things that we did was, Paul, if you can pull up those pretty pictures. So
Yeah.
we have a list of trees that are part of our RFP, and Paul's going to talk about the RFP in a little bit. But this list is basically the list that we have available to us, and the liaisons can show this to their neighbor and say, hey, which one of these would you like to see on your front lawn or maybe in a common area of the neighborhood? And but the list itself was just a list of scientific and common names, and we felt that it needed to be a little sexier. And so Cindy spent a good deal of time importing images of each item so that people can get a better sense of the tree and what we're talking about, what it looks like in a mature state from a shape standpoint. This is a work in progress. We're going to input information about how tall it gets at maturity and some other things so that people can make informed decisions. But this is what, we're talking about when we say that we're updating some of this material. It's just trying to make it a little more user-friendly for people who are not, landscape architects or certified arborists. Are there any tree liaisons that were able to join us today, Paul?
Yes, there are. I'm gonna stop sharing this for just a minute and get back to the list of the liaisons. If you want me to read, we've got two people who've asked some questions now, actually. And what I'll do is, Diane, we'll come back to you in just a minute, okay? Because Diane was here and this is the first time I've done this, so I may not have gotten to the panelists quite in time. But let me, on the topic that Eric has got, Claire Vermont is here. I'll go down the list and allow Claire to just talk for a second if she'd like. Claire?
Hi, I'm here, but I don't see my face. Can you hear me?
We can hear you just fine, Claire.
Okay, I'm sorry. I should have just driven over there and sat at the table with Paul or something.
You turn your camera on the video section right down in here. You should be able to, if you have a camera on your computer, you should.
Okay, well, you know what? You'll see me soon enough. As long as you can hear me and I can hear you. I can't figure this thing out, so.
Paul, she's listed as a non-video participant, so you're not doing anything wrong, Claire. It's just the way
Okay.
that you've been admitted into the meeting. You're fine.
Okay, great, thank you.
How about that? Try that now.
Well, Claire, if correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we got the benefit of you as a liaison because you went through the free tree program. Is that correct? What'd you do,
You're
Paul?
muted, Claire.
We lost Claire?
No, she's on
Oh,
mute.
she's here.
Oh.
I'm gonna ask her to unmute.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I'm sorry about all this. Let's see. So yes, oh, that's me. That's me. Hi, everybody. So anyway, I did receive a gorgeous tree for my front lawn. I'm on Baxter Drive in the Harbor Shores area. And whoever lived here before, they cut down a gorgeous mature tree way before I was living here. But through this program, I now have a beautiful river birch in its place. So I'm really, really happy. And I love this program and I'll do whatever I can to help it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Claire.
You're welcome.
Anyone
Okay.
else, Paul?
Next person is Fenella Pearson.
Oh, Fenella, sure.
I'm here. I don't see my picture though.
We see your picture.
I'm looking forward to learning a lot more and seeing how much I've been noticing all the trees with the little green bags around the bottom. There's quite a lot of new trees that have been planted in South Norwalk, where I live, especially in some of the there's a little industrial park down, I guess it's still Woodward Avenue, down towards Harbor View. And there's lots of trees there and a park that's being, I don't know how is there a word treeified? I don't know. Lots of
We
new.
can coin terms, sure.
I had a question on the trees. I noticed a lot of the trees didn't look as if they were native varieties. Is there a focus on trying to plant native trees and native shrubs?
Absolutely. A lot of what we do plant is native, but we have to take into consideration the location. And sometimes based on the location, a non-native might be able to thrive and survive in that location. You know, we have to remember we're coastal. We might have some marshy areas. We need salt tolerant and that kind of thing. Peter and Rich could probably speak a little better to that.
I mean, basically, non-native trees also flower and provide pollination, stations, if you will. So it doesn't necessarily mean that a non-native is not helping the ecology of the place.
Right. I agree. I just wanted to ask the question. And the other thing I had was August 22nd is a Sunday, correct?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Good.
I figured this way it won't conflict with work. We'll do the afternoon and we'll have food.
Sounds good.
Great. Thank you so much, Fenella. Nice to meet you.
You.
Anyone else, Paul?
Next is Sonia Oliver.
Unmute. There we go.
Hello. Nice to meet everyone.
How are you?
I'm doing well. The link that you sent me, does it have pictures attached to it? Because I saw the email from you, but I didn't get a chance to open it yet.
It does not. I'm going to send you the new version that Cindy worked on. It'll make it a lot easier for you to make selections. And you're actually one of the agenda items on today's meeting. You're item number 5. So we'll talk definitely more about the plantings there in a minute. But we're so happy to have you as a liaison. You are super involved in Norwalk in general, and it's a perfect fit.
Thank you.
And we're trying to get your sister also.
Yeah, I actually sent her a message asking her to come over, and I haven't heard back from her. So
Okay, to be continued. Anyone else, Paul?
Next is Richard Chumney.
Mm-hmm.
Asking him to unmute. Richard? If you unmute your computer, you should be able to talk. Let me try one other thing that might help then. If that'll work. Richard, if you unmute, you should be all set to talk. Okay, the next one, we'll come back to Richard if he can let me know. We'll come back to him. Next is Luis Estrella.
Oh, awesome. Luis, thank you so much for joining us.
Hello, everyone. How are you guys doing? Not sure. I don't video, but that's fine, even better. How's everyone doing? I'm glad to be here to learn more about the TAC. I like trees. I'm a tree person and glad to help. Have lots of energy. I'm very involved in the city itself. So awesome.
Great.
Yeah, and you're already, doing conservation within the city, so it's a natural fit. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Louis.
No problem, Rich.
We'll put you to work, Louis. Don't worry.
Yeah, Rich and Peter already know Louis, and it was their suggestion that we reach out to include him on this. So thank you.
Okay, we'll go back to Richard. Richard? Okay,
Okay, we can always come back. I'm sorry that we're having technical difficulties. Thank you, Richard, for joining us. I'd like to go forward and obviously the tree liaison program is going to be ever changing. And once we get all of the packets and other materials settled and vetted through, our committee will, send them out to everyone.
Erica, there were two people that had their hands raised and we didn't quite get to them in the beginning. Diane Lauricella. So
Sure.
Diane?
Hi, Diane.
Diane?
Welcome.
Hi, yes, I know there was a technical, thank you. Thanks very much, Paul. I was just going to write a letter instead, but may I speak just for a minute or?
Yeah, this is my first meeting at the Spaceship Control, so.
No problem. Well, thank you very much. My name is Diane Lauricella. I'm a member of the Mayor's Water Quality Committee, and the reason why I wanted just to speak briefly was I first wanted to set the record straight. About a month or two ago, the Norwalk Hour had a, you know what they say about if it bleeds, it leads. And they had an article that the title that stated Norwalk has the worst tree cover in Fairfield County. And then they had my name starting off as a member of the Mayor's Water Quality Committee. I just want you all to know that I did not utter that phrase. That was stated by someone else on the committee, but the connection, it was a poor placement, and I strive very hard to give credit where credit's due. And I've been very impressed by this committee's, especially the last couple of years, has even before then has done amazing work in trying to improve the tree cover. So I just wanted to set the record straight there. But on two of your items related to the chapter 112, the ordinance, and then also discussing in that, I will send some thoughts and ideas to both you and Lisa Shanahan. And that has to do with the need, in my opinion. I'm an environmental consultant. I do mostly hazardous work, hazardous waste work, and but I also teach people about ecosystems. And this has to do with illegal removal of public trees. And I'd love this committee just to begin thinking about this. I know you're going to be speaking about the ordinance in a moment. And that is, I think it would be really important, and you may already intend to do this, for illegal removals of public trees, especially in our parks, that there be fines leveled or replacement of the trees that were taken out based upon that tree's ecosystem service abilities. Because as we all know, trees have a variety of things that they do. I was very interested in seeing, because there are ways to value trees. There are new apps, and I'm sure Professor Kipp and others on this in this committee have ways, by looking at the girth of the tree, the type of tree, can actually put a monetary value on that tree. And if someone were to illegally remove a tree, they should replace it with even more than 1-to-1. It should be based upon the ecosystem service and the age of the tree. There should be 1-to-5 or 1-to-10. There should be some way so that they truly replace the ecosystem services. So I thank you very much. I look forward to maybe one day becoming a tree liaison when I find some housing in the area. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Diane. We will, as you mentioned, talk a little bit about that in the agenda item number 10. But we really appreciate you both setting the record straight and commenting on that ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move to approve the minutes from our June 22nd meeting. Were there any changes or anything anybody noted that we want to have corrected? We're good? All right, then I motion to accept the minutes from the June 22nd meeting.
Motion to accept.
Seconded.
Great, thank you. Okay, capital tree planting program. Rich, you want to talk about Aiken Street?
I had met with Ken Hughes earlier in the year when they were doing the field construction on Aiken Street, and my preliminary count was a maximum potential for 26 tree location sites along the new field construction and also at the upper parking lot west of the tennis court where there's a couple of vacancies. And I emailed Ken and we're going to try to get together this week. Construction for the most part is complete where trees can be placed now, or at least staked. So we're going to try to get together. Ken's available Thursday or Friday. I can't meet him Thursday. I'm going to try to meet him Friday before noon and come up with a tree count for appropriate locations along Aiken and the parking lot abutting. We're not going to plant next to the tennis court. It's not appropriate. And we'll come up with a final tree tally for Aiken Street, and hopefully we can partner with Rec and Park. And if it's too many trees, I don't want to do them all at once because I'd like to put some oak trees in there. I know oaks are a fall hazard. So this can be divided up into a 2-year planting between this fall and next spring.
The plans currently call, just so everybody's aware too, the construction plans called for a group, I believe it was at least 10 or maybe 15 green giant arborvitaes to be put in as part of the project, in addition to what Rich is talking about.
In addition to,
And they would be covered under what funding, Paul? Not the tree budget, right?
That's coming out of the project budget for the construction of the field through Parks and Rec's capital budget.
Yeah, but Aiken Street is one of my favorite tree planting locations because the wires are on the other side of the road. We'll have to plant inside the fence line, which keeps them away from the road, the salt, and any car injury. But they'll never be molested by the utility company because there's no wires on that side of the road.
beautiful. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you. Yep.
Just a point, often we're dealing with capital projects that don't include budget for landscape tree replacements. And much of it often has to do perhaps with the way the funds come. And Paul knows better than I, but far too often, we're looking to not include trees when we include hardscape improvements in the city. And I just think we have to be more cognizant of trying to get the monies to put trees back as part of streetscapes and utility enhancements, because they're just often sort of left over, and we're adding and we're sort of taking out of our tree budget to sort of complement capital development projects. So if we can think about them, as putting back the green system with the gray system, and that's the way I'd like to think about it with this committee. And that's just a point to sort of move ahead on.
Definitely. And what we're trying to do is when we do the plan reviews now, a lot of the stuff related to the different projects for like Parks and Rec, some of the different school stuff does get an opportunity to come through Public Works now, which didn't always happen before, but in the last couple of years it is now. So we've been looking at those, and as we review the plans, one of the things that we ask about is the tree planting and the restoration as part of the capital project versus, like you said, Peter, coming out of our budget. So there is focus being put on that more so than in the past.
Good. I think it's important.
Great, thank you. 15 Madison Street. Rich, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
15 Madison, is that Sonia's site?
Yes.
So we met with Sonia, and Erica and I walked the site. So we came up with locations on Madison and also Monroe. Their site is bordered by Monroe, MLK, Madison, and Metro North. So they're really like surrounded by roads over there. Sonia and her group have already put in a tremendous amount of trees on their own with their own budget. So Erica, myself, and Sonia walked the site. We found locations where I think we can put in some nice Redmond, American lindens on Monroe between their first gate and their second gate on the Monroe side. There's a couple of dead trees, unfortunately, they need to remove on Madison. Sonia told me, I hope Sonia's still listening.
I'm
Yep.
right
Oh,
here.
I just unmuted her,
I guess the other
so she's able to talk.
the trees over there so we can capture the replanting on the Madison side with our fall planting. They desperately need some trees on that side of the site. And I think there's 3 that have to come down, so we want to replace them 1 for 1 and possibly add a 4th one
Right.
at the other side of the existing playground there for some shade. And they would greatly benefit with some buffer trees. They already started planting some arborvitaes because the roads are so close to the site there that even with some canopy trees, they need some screening and buffer from the road traffic and the heat and the dust and everything. So this could be an ongoing site to plant trees, but I'm proposing that we start this fall with a couple of trees on the Monroe side and at least 3 or 4 on the Madison side. And then we go back and supplement with arborvitaes so they have some buffer on both Monroe and Madison. And then on the MLK side, they have existing trees, but it's a great site for like a bed area or some pollinator plants along the fence line. They just got done redoing all their sidewalks and a bunch of infrastructure work. So the placement of the trees has to be in a manner where we stay away from the sidewalks, we stay away from the fences, we stay away from the utility wires. But I'm willing to work with Sonia and make it work. And I've seen the work that they've already started and they're doing a great job. So I'm happy to help out. So that's a location I'd like to get on the list for this fall.
Absolutely.
This is a great spot in
I
Sono.
echo that. I echo that. When we were there yesterday, we definitely targeted an area for 6 canopy trees, 4 on the one side, as Rich was saying, 2 on the other side. And then with our budget, we could definitely do a good 10 of the larger arborvitaes that tend to be, like the 8-foot, and get those in now. And then we can do, just like Aiken Street, this project in phases.
And this is a great area where we were looking to add trees in Sono, areas of impervious surfaces. So this is a great target area to help with the overall canopy too. And I know that at one point, Lisa and Louise had mentioned they would look at some interior plantings, since most of our stuff we try to keep on the outside. So we can do a tag team in this area, and it would really work out to be a great project together.
Okay, Paul, since you're already talking, do you want to discuss 133 Murray Street?
Okay, 133 Murray Street is a request that I received. There's a lady that had sent in a request for a tree a year or so ago. She got the tree in fall of 2020, said she loved the tree and would like to see if she can get an additional tree added, another sugar maple.
Great, and Elmwood.
Elmwood Avenue is another area where we're going to be doing some construction of sidewalks and curbs and things like that. So we're working with Mike Bushak up in that area, where we had done a pile of planting back in 2006, 2008. And later on, when we get to the GIS mapping, you'll see one of the products of one of the trees that we put in 2008. And they're going to need to add some additional trees. So we're working with Mike on a list of trees and what can be done there to enhance that area after the sidewalk project is done.
About how many, Paul, are you thinking? Just
It could potentially be 11 trees.
okay.
Another area in Stono, just around the corner from where Sonia is at Madison Street.
Just a small point on Elmwood, the tree placement and views to the harbor are just to be considered. I know you work with Mike and that's great, but Elmwood is one of those high streets that overlooks the harbor. It's got great potential, like economic value moving forward in the future.
Yes.
So those trees can have a big impact on Elmwood.
Good point, thank you. And then we have a 21 First Street replacement.
We had 3 Rosa Raguses that we installed at 21 First Street this spring, part of the planting down there to restore some of the work that was done for planting for the sidewalks and curbs. And we went with smaller trees there because of the storefronts and the narrow area to try to get something in there. We ended up having to plant in the snow shelf, so we went with these smaller ones. And unfortunately, the owner of the business there told me one night someone came and dug one of the 3 up and is asking if we can replace it. And there's no police report. And the cost of the tree was $112. So we'll try and replace it, but someone stole that one tree and there's no way of tracking down who did it.
Okay, so that's a
Sorry about that.
replacement. Great. Okay, thank you, Paul. Do you want to move on to Olmsted and the watering schedule? So just for some of the folks who are joining us for the first time, our current contract for trees that we plant is from a company called Olmsted Trees. They are the ones that source the trees for us. And part of our contract when we purchase those trees is that they will water them for 2 years in order to establish their success. So what we require Olmsted give us on a regular basis is a watering schedule so that we can make sure that the installations we've done are being maintained. So that's what Paul has here, showing us the location of the trees that were planted, the type of tree, the number, and when they are watered. Okay, so is there anything that you want to report about the schedule in particular, Paul?
Right now, it just looked, I know we got a lot of water in July in terms of rainstorms, but Olmsted did go out after our last meeting. You can see we met on 6/22. Our 6/29, they watered one River Birch over at Elliott Street. And then there's a group of other ones you can see that they started looking at and doing work on after our last meeting too. So there's quite a few of the locations that they've gone out and done watering in addition to what we received from Mother Nature. And
Okay,
can
so
see
you
how it's
updated that. Great.
updated that and sent us the new sheet. So they're doing what they're supposed to do in terms of sending this to me. I asked them for it monthly, and that will be something we'll mention in the new RFP too, that it is required. Whoever gets it's going to be required to do it monthly between the months of April and November as to what they've done and where they've done it. And that's basically it. So they produced what they were
Okay.
supposed to.
Okay, we can pull that down. Paul is going to talk about the RFPs next, but one of the things that we want to mention is that, these tree companies have contracts for a finite amount of time, and we're tabling, other tree companies as well, and we'll weigh out all of the options and choose another company or stay with Olmsted, depending on what the group is interested in doing. The RFP that Paul is going to talk about kind of speaks to that.
Now, what we've done is basically purchasing is prepared an RFP proposal based off of the list, and I'll share the actual list of trees that we've got in the RFP. And let me just go back and see if I can grab that and I can bring it up for everybody so that they can see it in the new RFP.
It's the list that we just looked at earlier that Cindy did. It's okay if you don't pull it up again.
Yeah, and what we ended up doing is we broke it up into a list of native and non-native trees, as well as native and hybrid shrubs. And that's part of the RFP. It will be advertised tomorrow, and we'll hope to have results of that within a month. Then we'll have a committee. There'll be 3 of us on the committee that will interview the various firms that respond to the RFP. And then based on their responses, their packages, and a variety of criteria, we'll pick the one that best represents the needs of the city. And I
And
will say
that's
right
the
up front,
point that I was gonna make. They don't just work with TAC, they work for the city of they collaborate with the city of Norwalk. And then as a result, they work with TAC. It's not the other way around.
that's correct. When they do this contract will be a tree and shrub planting contract for both Public Works, TAC, and Recreation and Parks.
Mhm. Great, thank you.
That'll be advertised tomorrow, and then we'll go from there.
Sounds good, Paul. Thanks for keeping us in the loop with that. Item number 8 is the Oak Hills Planting Plan. Paul, I don't know if you wanted to give any background or if if Audrey's will just speak to this point only.
Well, what I can do is
Up to you
basically,
guys.
when Eversource removed the trees under the high tension wires, which I'll bring up the aerial photo right now, there were a group of trees that were taken out. They're pine trees. They're mainly conifers. They had, after Audrey had brought to our attention and a group of other people, we had talked about issues with what they had done out there. They offered to do replanting, and they've submitted a plan. Last month, we just introduced it to the committee and said we would talk about it and discuss it tonight based on our impressions of the plan and what we would like to see. And in addition, I was going to meet with Audrey, which I did met with her yesterday, walked it in the field, and she has some comments as the chair of the Oak Hills Nature Advisory Committee. And we're going to take the comments from Audrey as well as the committee tonight, put them together, and then go back to Eversource and say, here's what we would like to see based on what you submitted. And one of the things we'll just say is, and I mentioned this last month, that there was nothing but basically shrubs that were being put back there. And as a result, we thought maybe they could do a little bit better. And then I can turn this over to Audrey now.
Okay, yes, hi. Thank you, Paul, for inviting me yesterday to meet with you on site. And hello to everyone in the Tree Advisory Committee. Keep up the great work. So we reviewed together this plan, which it's a row of viburnum, different varieties. And we kind of decided it looked a little like a hedge. And when we walked around the area and sort of paced it out, we were thinking that there's space for possibly three native dogwoods that would not reach a height of the high tension lines, and interspersed with them arrangements, more naturalistic arrangements of possibly three shrubs or understory that might include the Eastern native viburnum, the American hydrangea, and the native rhododendrons, which would provide habitat for wildlife and would flower at various times. The dogwoods in the spring, and then the other shrubs throughout the summer, and would create a good screen between the street and the golf course, and look a little more natural, a little more native. I don't think these are terribly expensive plants, and maybe the dogwoods, there could be 2 pink and 1 white, or 2 white and 1 pink, or something like that. So just looking for a little more naturalistic shelter for wildlife, and also more attractive, and this range of flowering during the seasons we thought would be nice too. There could be winterberry in there as well. So that's kind of the direction we were going, and we were lucky to have the park's horticulturist stop by, Anthony Hilton, and
Yes.
he weighed in on what we were talking about, also about the planting of trees. And there's a downward slope. There's actually kind of an area that sometimes floods, and I think putting in trees their root system would help, I think, with the drainage there as well. So I think I kind of caught everything. Paul, what do you think?
And it was pretty much it. We were very fortunate to have Anthony just happen to walk by while we were looking at the stuff out there. And he did have some information to add too. And Audrey can attest to, I even tried to see if he was interested in becoming a liaison also out in that area too, trying to recruit while we were working.
Yeah, I think Anthony might also, add additional gardening. He has planted some beautiful garden spaces all throughout that golf course. So, you know, he may embellish with rudbeckia and some of the other native echinacea and some native flowers along the way too.
It sounds
Audrey and
fantastic.
I were pretty much on the same page. Basically, we thought maybe they could add a couple of trees. So what do the committee members have as thoughts on that too? Peter, Rich, we'd like to hear what you guys have to say.
I saw Peter's comments and I agree with Peter and Audrey. And I think some native dogwoods or winterberry or witch hazel to add a little bit more height and diversity in there instead of just a hedge of viburnum. Those trees are never going to interfere with the high tension wires and it would look a lot nicer and add some diversity and flowers and a little more buffer to the golf course along the roadway. So I agree.
Yeah,
And it'll look a little more natural. I mean, what they was a very kind of manicured row. This is going to look like a more natural scape kind of ecosystem. And I think it'll also add color as well. I think it's a fantastic idea.
So Audrey, moving forward, the value of trees tend to last longest because of maintenance. And so buying from the golf course and the maintenance staff onto what the planting is important because they're taking care of it moving forward.
Yeah.
And more trees, the trees are going to last longer. You know, a grove of gray birch there would be fairly simple, but probably give you the longest longevity. You know, even witch hazel has a relatively good height. So I would say a little bit simpler perhaps on the palette because of management and maintenance. Not one of everything is not necessarily best.
Right. Well, where we're open, I would think that at some point it would have to be shared with the ground supervisor at the Oak Hills Park Authority as well.
Yes.
Since he'll be maintaining it. But I think the more naturalistic and providing shelter or a habitat, we need the understory, and we do need trees that will, I think dogwoods only live for about what, 50, 60 years sometimes.
Well, actually, any of these small trees, they're all about the same in terms of
Yeah.
longevity. So that's not terrible.
Mhm.
It's what they can sort of provide on the vertical scale.
Right.
And I don't think any of these, what we're talking about, would interfere with the golf course at all, really, would they, Peter or Rich?
I don't know if that's a T there. You just have to watch the width. You have pines there now, so I don't think that's going to be a problem.
Actually, I thought that was roadway, but the way we're viewing it, the pavement to the left is the cart path. And the trees to the right were removed, and then the road is to the, where your pointer is now.
That's the main road. The tee box and stuff is over here. The area of the sloping little bit of a valley that Audrey talked about was right in here. And then this was where they took the trees out. So, and the parking lot is down where it says plan acceptance.
Okay.
That's where the parking lot is.
Okay, guys. Well, it sounds like we're definitely all on the same page with this. So I guess the next step is for DPW to approve and then go back to Audrey and the company, or what are we waiting for to happen next? Let's just be clear.
What we'll do is compile the comments. I'll just make sure when we lay something out, we've got everybody's approval. I'll touch base with Peter and Rich, and then I'll touch base with the golf course. And then once that's set, we'll send everything back to Eversource and say, here's what we would really like in response to your original offer.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, the next item on the agenda, Louise Washer from the Nature Conservancy, from the watershed could not be with us. She is chair of the Norwalk River Watershed Association, and she applied for a grant with the Nature Conservancy, but she wanted to come and speak to it. I hope she's okay. She let Paul know last minute that she couldn't make it. So we're gonna table that and we'll revisit it in August just to give her the opportunity to discuss her grants.
Okay.
So
I'll put it on the
we'll move
agenda. I'll
to-
carry it over then.
We'll carry it over, and we'll move on to update for the Chapter 112 tree ordinance revisions. Now, the tree ordinance committee met last week, and a couple of us, I think Paul, Rich, and myself, I know Danica was on that call as well. If I missed anyone, I apologize. We jumped on that meeting. There were a few things that were brought up, some by Lisa Shanahan, some by Chris Torrey, who is the tree warden. And I don't want to do a disservice. That entire meeting was recorded, and there are minutes from that meeting, so we can, go back and look at that record to be sure of all of the types of things they were including. However, only because Diane was on earlier and she did bring up a few things that I did hear them talk about last week. One, for example, was, having in place a more rigorous and also an enforcement of trees that are taken down on both public and private lands. And that's something, that's going to have to get fleshed out, particularly the enforcement part, but it was definitely brought up as something that seems that everyone is on board with. And also there was discussion about, if we're taking down a mature canopy tree, putting up a 2.5 caliper tree is not really a 1-for-1 swap. That mature tree was filling an ecological niche and performing ecosystem services that new tree can only hope to provide in decades. So there was talk, I think I heard Chris mention a 1 to 10. I don't know how feasible that's going to be, but definitely we should, I think we're all in agreement that a 1-for-1, particularly when there's a mature tree that was removed, is not really replaceable with a 2.5 caliber tree. And so maybe, to Diane's points, there's some kind of a sliding scale. Maybe if the tree we're taking down is X, approximately age X, or approximately this size, and maybe then we say, okay, that size tree, we have to replace it with 5, but this size tree we need to replace with 3. Maybe it's not, just a one size fits all. Maybe it depends, but they're talking about it. There's some great conversations happening. And again, I just want to urge everyone to take a look at the minutes and listen to the recording, because I don't want to misspeak or, not include some of the other really important points that were being discussed that night.
Yeah. Peter, you'll be happy. One thing that was mentioned too is the root zone protection, and during development, some of the stuff trying to protect the trees, or there's private development done if there's any city trees.
That had Peter written all over it.
In years. We're trying this for years.
So that was mentioned, and some other things like that. So like Erica said, there's a lot of stuff that we've been talking about and trying to bring it all into the conversation. So,
and for our new liaisons, it's 3 years after construction, the tree drops dead, and they don't put the 2 and 2 together. It's the construction process.
Reference that as the Peter clause. I don't know where they.
Great. For item number 11, just in terms of grant applications, the only thing I have to report at this point in time is that I am actively exploring grants right now to impact our spring planting, kind of bolster our ability to get some trees in the ground. And the NEEF grant, the Environmental Educational Foundation grant, has been completed. We successfully planted 4 trees in Ludlow Park, and we were able to tomorrow, the trees were put in June 1st, and tomorrow 2 maintenance-free benches will be installed in that park. One of the things we noticed when we were at Ludlow was that there's this fantastic playground for the kids, and there's not a lot of seating for caretakers to watch them play safely. And so the installation of these 2 benches is going to be really, really impactful. And we put in 4 trees, 3 along the street and 1 at the bleachers, which was completely exposed to the sun and elements. So hopefully that'll make, a already frequently used park even more user-friendly. Okay, so I submitted all the final paperwork, all of the photographs and budget reports, so we can all consider the NEEF grant a success and closed chapter.
Brasiglio, who's the road supervisor in charge of the crew from operations that'll be installing them tomorrow, said he would call me when they were done and we'll get pictures of it when we can distribute the pictures of the final product.
And Paul, just remind me, how much were those benches? Like,
Total,
How much
it was like $24.50 for the 2 of them, so it was over $1,200, like $1,225 a piece.
each bench. So they're like the indestructible benches. So which is important because they're going to be subjected to, sun and rain and snow, and they're going to be out there in the elements. So there's longevity there. Okay, now without further ado, oh, you know what? I actually move to a motion to reverse item 12 and 13 so that Danica, who is visiting us remotely from the state of Connecticut DEEP Urban Forestry Coordinator, so that she can have the benefit of seeing the geolocation program that the city has developed for us. So just again, to let the rest of the folks know, one of the things we're doing is mapping. We have been doing this consistently, mapping out where the trees are, what kind of tree is there, what size is the tree, just different metrics that can be included in this geolocation system. And IT worked with it to include a few more categories like the breast height, one of the suggestions that Danica gave us, but also to be able to use this program on a mobile device so that you can use your cell phone to geolocate, so we can have an intern that doesn't need clunky equipment, to go out with. They can just use their cell phone, and it'll also capture an image of the tree. So Paul, do you want to go ahead and share your screen, please, and just show us an example of one of the items in that GIS mapping system?
Okay, this is an area actually we were just talking about, Elmwood Avenue over in South Norwalk. And this particular one now, you can see we've got the map, we've got the different types of trees on the side of who planted them. And if I click on that particular tree, you can see it was planted on 4/23/08 by the Tree Advisory Committee, DPW, 42 Elmwood Avenue. The newest thing, like Erica was talking about, is the diameter at breast height in inches has been added. So now it's 12.0. You can see that particular tree was, and here's an image of the tree that was taken, and that's what that tree looks like today.
That's awesome. And I love that it's the actual tree in this program.
You're looking at the actual tree in the field of what was put in there. And now we can go back, zoom up if you wanted to see anything related to the tree. And then if you wanted to, we can get back out of that and get back over to where we were before. And let me just get out of this.
So Paul, does that program have a key for the author of that information? And is that useful?
Well, it basically, it records behind the scenes who's actually geolocating the information in the field. And I'll bring it back up again so you can see it one more time. Let me just get back into it.
Yeah, it's only because the person locate, there might be a question that if I'm locating a tree, I might not put everything in there because I'm moving fast. But, then if you might ask me a question about it, for follow-up. It's not critical, but it might be helpful.
We can get to it. It doesn't show it right in his dashboard, but we have the information of whose cell phone device it came from. So
Okay,
yes,
Yeah, that answers his question. That's perfect.
and that's the information right now. And like Erica said, Danica, we've already added the diameter of breast height to it, so we've got that.
And so at the end of the day, this type of information, and Danica can speak a little more to this, but just so that preliminarily some people can understand, like, why is this important? Why would we spend time doing this? Well, we can see where our concentrated efforts are. We can kind of overlap this map and see where did we lose a lot of trees in a storm? And maybe that's a location where we can concentrate on planting. Maybe if we see that we've spent an awful lot of time, planting in 1 or 2 parks, we can redirect our efforts, knowing that we've already done a lot of installation in one particular area. Maybe we can look at this map and see, okay, our canopy cover is a little lacking in this area, and make that area a focus in our spring or our fall planting. Also, having this type of information can give us data that we can use to publish, and we can also use to help us secure grants. It's very difficult to say, yeah, we want to plant trees in Norwalk if we don't have this kind of bigger picture of what Norwalk looks like and where we want to put these trees. So it'll kind of identify easily for us where these niches are that could use some trees and help generate some data. So without further ado, Danica, thank you for your patience, and thank you for, you've been running the entire Norwalk circuit recently. This is a tree advisory committee, which is a little bit of a different group than some of the other groups you've been addressing. We are a group of completely volunteers that are vetted through the Common Council and appointed by the mayor. And we have a budget that is from the city of Norwalk that we try to separate out into 2 plantings, one in the fall, one in the spring. We don't separate it out necessarily evenly. If we have more trees that are going to go in the fall, so be it. We additionally try to write grants as a committee in order to bolster the amount of money we have in our budget and be able to plant even more trees.
Awesome. That's so helpful. Can I actually, before I introduce myself, ask a few follow-up questions about this inventory?
Please.
Very cool to see it all fleshed out. I have a couple questions and I have a couple more suggestions. One is that I noticed that it's common names that are in the inventory. I don't know if there's space, but I would really recommend including Latin or scientific names. Especially if you do end up hiring an intern and having more people collect data. Common names just vary so much that it could get very confusing. And to that end, I think Peter's point about having an author is also very important as you collect more. Yeah.
Would you, what I can, if you would like, what I can do is bring it back up in the background again so everybody can see. One of the things this does do is it produces an Excel spreadsheet that I can get into and the administrators can get into. So would you like us to basically, we can take and program each tree that gets put in and automatically put the scientific name in there so that somebody doesn't have to do that in the field, but yet it would automatically come up in the dashboards.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I think the most important part is for consistency. Some things like a red maple is almost always a red maple, but then you can get into things like black gum or like tupelo or like things that have multiple common names, and it can get very confusing, especially as you're planning to expand this.
Yeah,
The
I
link-
couldn't agree with
We'll
Danica
add that
more.
in.
The scientific
We'll put
name
that
is the
in.
most important.
All right, we'll put that in, and then we'll also add the person that does the locating. Is that something you'd like to see up front or in the back, if you want it?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's mostly just important to know if there's like follow-up questions. I was also wondering if is the date at which the picture is taken also saved in this program? Like, in other words, if someone were to go back, would they be able to know when that picture was actually taken, whether it was like 5 years ago or 10 years ago or whatever?
Yes, that date of the picture is located and the information is stored in the back of the data part of the programming. So you can get that also.
Cool.
That one
It's
we
a
just
good-
showed you here, that was just located recently. So that date for the picture is obviously a big difference between when it was installed in 2008.
Sure.
Just thinking what the matrix is, and the Latin name is important because I don't always think about them in common meaning, but that's me.
Okay. Any other ideas?
I have an idea not related to content, but just in relation to Professor Kipp. I love hearing about this tree liaison program. What a great idea. I think this is like so genius. And I'm just wondering if, I'm all so new to this, but I'm wondering if this is the sort of tool or this sort of interface would be user friendly to the extent where it's something that the tree liaisons could get involved with, helping to map the trees like on their block or in their neighborhoods.
Absolutely. First, I can't take credit for the liaison program. That was something that was in place already when I joined the committee, and the paperwork that we're revamping is from 2005. So it's been in existence at least since then. We are trying to, kind of make it a little more sexy, as we say, but a little more user friendly. But it is a program that was already well established in TAC. It is absolutely an option for the liaisons if they're interested, depending on their ability for time commitment, to become part of this mapping solution. Right now, we definitely need help with it, for sure. And if, we always tell the liaisons, you can, donate as much or as little time as you can. And so some people can target areas in their neighborhood for planting trees, and that's their contribution, and that's fantastic, and we need that. And then other people end up much more involved and somehow on the TAC committee at one day. so it varies, but I think it's an absolutely fantastic idea.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
Ideally, what I'd like to see is just what you're talking about. We go out and we plant 40 trees in the spring or 100 trees in the spring. The people in the different areas could all go geolocate it, and that everybody's doing 10 or 15 instead of 100 of them.
Right, exactly. Paul, if you could pull that off the screen now, I want to kind of be just cognizant of time, and allow Danica to address the group.
Yeah, great. Thank you. So I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm new in my role. Some of you may have known my predecessor, Chris Donnelly. He retired in August. And so I started working for Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, DEEP, at the end of January. So I am the Urban Forestry Coordinator. I am a team of one. And my team, my program basically exists to advise, assist, and provide resources to nonprofits, municipalities, friends of groups, and residents to help them grow, maintain, and improve their urban and community forests. Two things that the Urban Forestry Program and DEEP as a whole are incredibly focused on right now are issues of environmental justice and equity and climate change. Those are two conversations that are at the forefront of everything we're working on right now. And I think those are two things that are really becoming apparent as critical issues in urban forestry. I think some of you may have seen a lot of articles that have come out recently that are just linking, income levels to urban tree canopy cover, to climate change vulnerability. And so we are working very hard at DEEP to try and redress some of these issues. One way we're doing that is by running 2 brand new grant programs that hopefully will be announced soon. And these are grant programs specifically designed to fund urban forestry projects. So that could be maintenance of existing urban tree canopy. It could be planting new trees. It could be developing educational programming to expand the reach of an urban forestry program. But the idea is that these are urban forestry projects that are going to address environmental justice issues and climate change issues. At the same time that we're funding these on the ground programs, we're also really committed to kind of enhancing our understanding of baseline urban forestry conditions. So that's why I'm super excited to see this tree inventory. I wish every city in Connecticut had a tree inventory because it's one of the most useful tools we have in terms of, you know, assessing where we are right now and, you know, implementing some really valuable data-driven forest management. I know earlier the question came out about native species and whether, you know, we should be planting all native species or how many native species to plant. And I think having something like a tree inventory is so valuable from the perspective of understanding what the diversity of the current canopy is and what species potentially have been overplanted, what species are going to start to age out soon, and what species we need to plant in the future. And that can really inform these conversations about how many native species can we plant, you know, what's our threshold or our capacity to maintain a diverse urban forest. So to that end, we're running another grant program that's specifically designed to just fund planning projects. So that could be tree inventories, it could be analysis of urban tree canopy cover, it could be management plans, but the idea is that these are not on the ground projects so much as projects that are going to help inform future on the ground management. So those are our 3 really big grant programs that we're rolling out soon. In addition to those grant programs, we also are really committed to education and outreach, and we do a lot of workshops, collaboration with partner institutions like the Connecticut Forest and Parks Alliance Association. We work with Sustainable Connecticut, and we work with the Tree Wardens Association. And then the program really just exists to be a resource for residents in Connecticut, anyone interested in urban forestry, and to channel people's questions and interests and concerns about the urban forest into the right outlets. So that's a little bit about the urban forestry program and what I do in my role there. And I'm really so thrilled to be invited to your meeting today and to learn about all the exciting things that you all are working on in Norwalk, and hopefully, you know, to be a resource and to assist and to provide advising, you know, however I can be useful.
Awesome.
And one other thing I want to mention to you too, just you mentioned the tree canopy management too. Our operations division with the tree warden, Chris Torrey, and the tree group down there, when they go out now, what they're doing is with the city work service requests that they get for tree work in the city, they're mapping and recording what they find on the city trees and also in the park stuff too, so that they can have a history of what's going on for the trees that they get called for service requests too. That goes into our GIS and then can be combined with the tree planting that we just showed you too. So there is management from both sides that's going on and keeping a history of the trees as they're looked at or requested to be looked at too.
Yeah, that's great. That's really great. And I think that's something that often is overlooked in urban forestry. I think there's so much excitement and interest in planting trees, and I love planting trees, but I think that managing existing canopy is equally, if not more important, because like was mentioned before, you know, those large statured mature trees are really providing a lot of the ecosystem services that we associate with urban tree canopy. So that's great to be investing in that as well.
Fantastic. Does anybody have any questions for Danica? Nothing? Okay, so you mentioned 3 categories of grants. I mean, obviously we're interested in all 3 categories. When are they all going to unroll at the same time? Are they going to be staggered? When should we start to look for them? Because I stalk your website.
Yeah. Good question. So hopefully soon. the plan was to announce all the grants at the same time so that we would avoid sort of like overwhelming people's inboxes and actually like competing with our own grants. We're still waiting on, these are new grant programs, so they had to get signed off by the Attorney General's office. So we're still waiting for that final approval. My hope is that, you know, in the next week or so that those will be finalized, and then those are going to be advertised on our website. I mentioned that there's the 3 grant categories, 2 for urban forestry projects that are for environmental justice and climate change, and then 1 that's for like more planning projects. The difference between the 2 grant programs for urban forestry projects is a dollar amount. So 1 is going to be for amounts of like $10,000 to $37,000. And then the smaller grants will be $5,000 to $10,000. And we're implementing them with 2 partners, with the Connecticut Urban Forest Council and with the University of Connecticut. So there's 2 different parties that are going to help us implement those grants. But details hopefully will come out soon, and they certainly will be on our website and e-blasted to all of the tree wardens and COGs and tree advisory committees and everyone when they do come out.
Awesome. Awesome.
Oh, and
So
the last thing I was going to say is that they will be a little bit staggered. In other words, the hope is to have the larger grants have the deadline be sooner than the smaller grants, so that applicants who are not awarded that larger grant have the opportunity to turn an application around for the smaller award. And those 2 grants have 2 years of funding right now, so there'll be 2 grant cycles.
awesome. Awesome. Okay. Anybody else?
Danica, let me just for 2 quick seconds to explain your role for the other people. I mean, I know what it is, and some of the Rich and Peter probably know, but for the other people, your role in the Tree City USA from the National Arbor Day Foundation, and then how it works with you getting involved down to our local level.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Yeah, so I also, I am the state person who approves and looks at all of the Tree City USA applications. So that's a program through the Arbor Day Foundation that we have 18 cities and I think 2 campuses in Connecticut that are tree cities or tree campuses. For a tree city, you have to meet specific benchmarks, which how long has Norwalk been a tree city? Like
17 straight
17 years.
Exactly.
Growth Award is 15.
Exactly. Yeah. So my role is both to work with our existing tree cities to make sure that they maintain their tree city status, and to try and work with new municipalities to help them obtain those different benchmarks so that we can add more tree cities to our roster. But that tree city designation is just sort of indicative of the level of investment and resources that are allocated to urban forestry in a given municipality.
And you also do work with the tree campuses?
Yes, I mean, I'm saying yes, but I actually didn't do anything this year really, because the Tree City designations had been allocated before I started. So I'm still sort of learning the ropes with all of that, but this year will be my first full year with the program.
Awesome. So just to let folks know, Norwalk Community College and UConn are the only 2 higher education in Connecticut that have earned this honor. So UConn is the only 4-year, NCC is the only 2-year. And I applied for it for the first time in 2019. We earned it for 2019. I applied for 2020. We earned the distinction again, and I'll be applying again for 2021. The applications are due like the end of December of that year, because what you're doing is showing what you've done that calendar year to either earn or maintain your status. So in December of this year, I'll be submitting our 2021 application for NCC, and then Paul will be submitting it for the city. Great. Well, Alan is not here today.
He did
Oh,
good for you.
Alan, you jumped on, you sneaky.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm doing well. Sorry, I've been here, but for some reason I couldn't find the invite, and I think it's because it went to an email address that's no longer active. So I just jumped on through the link on the city website, but that means I wasn't a speaker. But thankfully, Paul figured it out and found me on here. So thank you. So quick update on Norwalk Tree Alliance. You can hear me but not see me, but that's okay. We had a lot of activities all throughout the spring, which you all know about, planting many, many trees. And then we had a bonsai class in June, which was a really wonderful event. And we hope to do again. We, in our recent meeting, have been debating how we'll restart our outdoor education program with Tree School. So we're waiting to hear what the announcements with Norwalk schools, while everyone's waiting to hear what the fall will look like, I think, for the school system to try to understand that. But we may decide to take one more year and let things settle out before we jump back in. We are going to be putting some focus and effort into developing a specific tree project relative to the Queen's Jubilee, which is next year. And she's asked her subjects, of which we are not, but we kind of think it'd be fun to jump on board a little bit on this. So we're going to be doing a Queen's Jubilee planting effort, and we're looking for locations to do a Queen's Grove of trees, native trees, and having a tea party celebration around that. As the Tree Alliance, we sort of get to do some of the fun, cheeky things, not always the serious things. So we're going to take full advantage of that. The other project that I just wanted to bring up, and maybe has already been brought up, Mary Verrill of the Norwalk Land Trust has contacted a number of folks within the city of Norwalk and the environmental nonprofits looking for someone to help to see if we can transplant some natural native saplings. And by natural, I mean self-started volunteer saplings that are growing in a property that they recently acquired in Silver Mine area. So I went to the property with her. A few others have also gone and looked at it. It's not totally obvious how to go about the mechanics of this, of getting things out into a position that they can then be relocated to other properties. And we don't really know where we'll put all of these trees. But I have been brainstorming with her and other groups about potentially doing a native tree sale. And it would take some funding to provide the labor to dig these saplings out, get them into containers or into burlap in a position that they could be sold, and then have a native tree sale at Fodor Farm in the spring is one idea that we floated. And there's some interest in that from our board as well as on her side. So just wanted to bring that up to you. I know that trees of this small nature, like 2 foot, 3 foot saplings, are not terribly useful for city tree programs, but we think it's an interesting opportunity that we don't want to miss, in that there are native trees growing and can be relocated before they convert a portion of the property into a pollinator meadow. So just wanted to make mention of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of the people who will contact us might want to put some trees like in their backyard or around a pool. And, you know, I mean, the TAC is not in place to provide, you know, backyard landscaping for people. But something like these native trees would encourage people to plant trees in their yard at little or no cost to them, increase, you know, the tree canopy overall, bolster the number of native trees that we have planted, and you know, work towards this pollinator pathway that is, you know, something that a lot of towns are you know, working on. So I think that sounds like a great idea, Alan. Do you guys have a time frame on when you're thinking about digging up and potting these guys?
So because of fall hazard, transplanting a lot of them in the fall is probably not wise. So we're looking at springtime to do that work, like probably late winter, digging them out in March and then having them potted up. I've contacted Daryl Newman of Planter's Choice just to understand the mechanics of what would be involved in an operation like this. This isn't something that we do normally. I don't think any of us are typically in the practice of finding 200 native trees in a woodland and digging them out to transplant. So we're trying to get some information from him as to how we can go about doing it in an effective way and make it something useful and make this successful. So the trees get planted somewhere useful in the city.
Well, Alan, March is when school is in session. So definitely keep me posted on when this becomes, more of a reality. And I will absolutely offer my students extra credit. And, as Louise is not here, but she normally gets a dozen able-bodied NCC students to come out and help at some of the invasive species removals and some other things. So keep me posted on that. We can definitely advertise at the college.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, we had a number of your students at our tree planting in April, and they were fantastic. So great.
Awesome. Good to hear.
So Alan, a question, in terms of prepping those trees to be transplanted, is there something we should be doing now? Root
Yeah,
pruning?
so I had similar question, should we be root pruning them or doing some sort of initial,
Pulling the vegetation away from them or sorting out the ones that you can't use?
right, exactly. Like going through and maybe selecting the top 100. There's about 400 trees just at a quick glance, and they're of probably 15 different species. Yes, potentially. I'm looking for someone on my board who has the bandwidth to champion that. I've just started my own business, so I'm a little bit short right now with time, but we're looking for someone on our board who would be interested in seeing this through. And so I'll circle back to you on that. But yes, there's a number of evaluation steps and then mechanically figuring out how to get this done.
Because the growing season is now, and if we don't do it now, you're not going to get the root growth by March.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Good
Okay,
feedback. Great. That's it for my report.
Okay, thank you, Alan. Is there any other business? Okay, then I move to adjourn today's meeting. It is 7:22. Apologize, I just messed up my own track record.
The ad hoc
Just so you're
concert is
aware, Bianca, too,
The ad hoc
the,
concert is going well
relationship
then.
with- The relationship with Alan is, Alan is part of the Norwalk Tree Alliance. He's the president. And that is the 501c3 partner that the city and the tree advisory has for the Tree City USA designation too.
Great. Okay, so I move to adjourn. Anyone second?
Second.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone. Thank you so much for your time. Claire, I love that piece of artwork behind you. It's fantastic. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you.
Have
a good night. Monica.